Everything just goes from the left. So there's no way for me to look at this.
Oh, I see.
I have the Build a Bigger Life podcast. Taylor Swift Master. Yeah, everything feeds from that side of the screen.
Oh, yeah. What are you using with that?
This is called a Restream.
Okay.
And what I like about it, and Bobby found it, is it streams to as many different places you want. So Twitter, even LinkedIn, we're on the Stacking Benjamins Facebook page right now, and on, of course, our YouTube page. Hey, everybody, even though this says I'm Adam Carroll, he's Adam Carroll. I'm Joe Saul-Sehy. We're about to make a show called Money with Friends. We're going to record 2 episodes. Each one is about 15 minutes long. So hang out with us, chat with us. We're talking big time headlines today. We're going to talk about actionable stuff like Taylor Swift and owning your own private jet. Stuff that has to do with the average person.
Common ordinary 2020 stuff.
Yes, exactly. It's going to be good though. So anyway, why don't we just dig in? I see people are starting to come in and hang out with us. Feel free, by the way, to leave comments, and Adam and I will see those in the chat. Let me go over to the chat. We'll see those in the chat, and you can be part of the show. But ready to do this, man?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Well, what are you going to learn today? I think you're going to learn to surround yourself with good people. Taylor Swift reminded again this week what having the wrong people in your corner means later on. We're going to talk contracts, networks, and success with the host of the Build a Bigger Life podcast, Adam Carroll, with us on today's November 19th version of Money with Friends. Welcome to the Money with Friends podcast, coming to you live from my mom's half-finished basement in Texarkana, Texas, where we make the Stacking Benjamin show. I'm Joe Saul-Sehy.
And my name is Adam Carroll, coming to you from the COVID epicenter, apparently, Des Moines, Iowa.
You never thought you'd have the opportunity to say that, did you?
Oh, gosh, red zone. Wave next time you fly over, Joe.
Oh, man. This is the show where we cover recent stories ripped from the financial press. Today, we're going to cover one that comes to us from Variety. Not only do we read them like some podcasts, we dive into how they affect your wallet, what you can do to invest better, save better, spend better. And we try to do that in less than 20 minutes. Today's show is brought to you by Tiller Money. Keep your financial life organized and on course. Easily track your money over time. Always know what's safe to spend and confidently plan for the future with spreadsheets automatically updated by Tiller Money. Free 30-day trial. If you go to tillerhq.com /MWF for Money with Friends. That's tillerhq.com /MWF. Well, Adam Carroll's back with us today. It's been a month, and apparently you are Mr. Super Spreader now.
I am. Well, I understand that, my super spreader capabilities got your YouTube video rankings higher than any other video this last month. That's exciting.
It did. We finally broke the 100 views mark. And I think we're at the 200 views mark. You and I talking about Chadwick Boseman, which is why we're totally going to sell out today and talk about Taylor Swift. Because here's what I think Adam Carroll, I immediately think the Taylor Swift of the financial podcasting world.
Dude, you are too kind. I thought we were going to go like a TMZ route. Every one of our shows is just going to be talking about celebrities.
It totally will. We'll call it TMMWF.
There you go. I love it.
All right, let's talk Taylor Swift. Let's see which one of our friends is going to help us kick off today's discussion.
Cool.
All right, this piece comes to us from Variety. As I mentioned earlier, it is written by, have that right here, Shirley Halperin. Scooter Braun sells Taylor Swift's Big Machine Masters for a big payday. The piece begins some 17 months after Scooter Braun's Ithaca Holdings LLC acquired Big Machine Label Group and all of its recorded music assets. Sources tell Variety the veteran manager and entrepreneur sold the master rights to Taylor Swift's first 6 albums. The buyer, an investment fund, is yet unknown, but the deal's believed to be north of $300 million. Closed in the last couple of weeks. Some insiders speculate the value could be as high as $450 million once certain earnbacks are factored in. Ithaca, if you remember, this was a big headline a few years ago, purchased the Nashville-based independent record label Big Machine, founded by Scott Borchetta in 2005, in June 2019, for just over $300 million, of which Swift's catalog from her 2006 self-titled debut all the way up through 2017's Reputation was believed to be worth some $140 million. And it goes on to say that her contract expired in fall of 2018, and she moved on from there. Of course, Taylor Swift, if you remember, Adam, was not happy at all that Scott purchased that, and said that nobody reached out to her to talk about, like, what are you actually buying, doing your due diligence. Are we going to be good partners in the future? And she was very unhappy. And in fact, we'll get into this, but her contract gives her some outs now very soon, which might have factored into this. When you read this, what was the first thing you thought about Taylor Swift?
You know what, candidly, Joe, one of the first things I thought of was when we did the Broke, Busted, and Disgusted documentary. We ended up partnering with a couple of firms. And after the fact, I was so frustrated that we got into a relationship with the agencies that we did because they did nothing. So from my perspective, I thought, wow, Swift as a creator of intellectual property might have gotten in with the wrong people at the beginning and now is paying the price for it on the back end. And I think that there's a lot going on behind the scenes, right, on this in terms of writing the music. It's everything from her signature to the album art. I mean, all this stuff that she created likely as a teenager, when she did this, when she was with Big Machine. So she didn't have the foresight of being in the industry for 10 or 15 years and knowing what she knows today.
Here's what I thought about when I thought about this, because I find everything you said super interesting, but I also think in your own personal life, is there anything that you see now that you would have done differently to change that?
Me personally, or with
No, for you in your situation where you partner with the wrong people, you look back now and you go, you know what, for the documentary, I would now, if I was doing this again, I would do X, Y, and Z differently than you did last time. Is there something that maybe our audience can learn that you should have done, some due diligence maybe you should have done?
I think the due diligence is a big one. I think the other side of the coin is understanding what the value of what you're creating is worth. So, did Taylor Swift know she would have a magazine or a catalog of music worth hundreds of millions of dollars down the road, and to continue creating that and profit off of that? You got to be somewhat mindful of who you're bringing into your camp on the front end, knowing that you're going to be paying them into perpetuity to some extent.
I mean, you're somebody, you also do, and we didn't talk about this in the open, all the different crazy things that AC does, but but you do retreats, and part of the retreats are not just building a better you, but part of it, I have to imagine, is surrounding yourself with the right people. Indeed. I feel like Taylor, as she's grown older, has realized the importance of having the right people in her corner, which plays into what you do, I think, a ton.
Yeah, for sure. It really is about who do you have around you. I think it was Jim Rohn may have said that you are the average of your 5 closest friends. So choose your friends carefully, which, brings into question why you and I are hanging out on this.
I'm sitting right here, man.
I'm sitting right here. It was a thought bubble that came out.
Get a filter.
But I agree with you. I think finding the right people in your camp, in your corner. I just had a call this morning from a friend of mine who's a mastermind partner, and he was going through all these financial machinations. Should he refi? And if he does, should he have a HELOC? And what does he do with the money? And he's actually looking at a cash out of his business. I felt really honored to be one of the guys that he's calling for that advice and information. I don't know that a lot of people have that outlet.
Yeah.
And so one of the suggestions might be, who do you have in your camp that is so financially savvy or business savvy or legal savvy that when you are faced with a question like Taylor Swift was at 15 or 13 or whatever she was when she signed to, was it Big Machine Records? When she signed to them, who did she have in her camp that was actually advising her in that career? And my guess is probably not a lot of people when you're that young.
No. And I'm also thinking when you're that young, she's just excited to be on stage. Right. And she's thinking, like a lot of these bands thought, many of us have heard of the story of Creedence Clearwater Revival and how John Fogerty and that whole team just got completely screwed by their label, and all these wonderful songs from the 60s and 70s. John Fogerty for a number of years would not sing anymore on stage because Every time he sang it, he got no money. And finally, he put that to bed, by the way. The last many years he's gone on tour and he sang those songs and just tells people, he's like, you know what? I've just made my peace that I got screwed and made a bad decision. Luckily with Taylor, though, later down in this piece, let's talk about what happened. She does now have the ability, and this might be why Scooter sold these now. She has the ability to re-record all these songs, which a lot of people don't have. And Taylor Swift, Adam, is so vocal on social media that I think if you play the old one versus the new one, like if whoever bought these, I can't figure out why you buy them, because having Taylor Swift come after me on social media would be a horror story that I don't want.
Right. I have to believe that what they did, they bought it based on, selling the songs to movies, to production houses. They're going to use it in movies, commercials. All the commercialization of that music, I think, is where the value is in the catalog itself. But yeah, her ability to re-record, which I believe starts, it's either this year or next year.
Yeah, very soon.
I think that's a gold mine for Taylor Swift to re-record that and re-release albums that she, wrote 10 or 15 years ago, but is now has the maturity behind her to re-record. I think it's awesome.
That's also a due diligence thing. There was something else in here that I wanted to talk to you about, which is Scooter Braun, the guy that she's had this feud with. He talks about how he doesn't even want to have this feud, about how people can change, opinions can change. I wish we could just talk. He sounds very conciliatory while he's laughing all the way to the bank. Is he really conciliatory, or do you think he's just saying what the press wants to hear?
I want to hear what Mike has to say, because he clearly knows some stuff about Taylor. He might be a Swiftie. Here's what I learned, Joe, in some of my copious research in the last 24 hours on this topic. Taylor Swift was asked to sign an NDA before she was ever even given a chance to make an offer on her own catalog. And the NDA, according to her attorneys, was so out of scope because it basically said that she had to sign an NDA saying that she could only say positive things about Scooter Braun. She could never say anything disparaging about him. So you got to wonder, for a guy to play the good guy card, like, hey, I really want to make amends and I reached out to you and you didn't respond back. Is he really a good guy if he's having her sign an NDA that she can never say anything disparaging about him? Right. I just kind of wonder if, how legit is the guy when that happens. I don't mean to speak ill of him, but you got to wonder that if an NDA is put out there before she ever has a chance to buy her own catalog back,
But I think a takeaway here, Adam, because I just bought this house in Texarkana next to Mom's house. When we go through all that paperwork, they have the closer sit down with you at the title company. There's stacks of paperwork, and what does the closer do? The closer says, basically, here you're signing this, sign on the bottom. You're signing this, sign on the bottom.
Sign here.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, I don't think 98% of people, that's probably even low, 99.5% of people have no idea what they're signing when they sign all this paperwork.
Right.
Like, I think
by the way, it says you can't stay if you don't pay. I just wanted to make sure you knew that. You can't stay if you don't pay. That's what that paperwork you signed says. You
can't stay in the house?
Yeah, if you don't pay. You can't.
What kind of rig is that? I can't default on my mortgage and stay here?
Oh, unfortunately.
I'm out. I'm done. I didn't know. They said this monthly payment thing. I'm like, how long does that go on? And they said 30 years. I'm like, are you 30 years? What is that about? That's a mess. But you should always request that paperwork the night before and just walk through no matter what contract you're signing, walk through it. And you know what, if you just I don't know why somebody want to eat an elephant, Adam, but there's that eat an elephant one bite at a time. But just take that contract and make sure you just understand each little thing, and you will understand it. I think every time I walk through those, I walk through I walk through a tax form, take it one piece at a time and try to understand it. And I think you can do it.
I would agree with you. And going back to the Broke, Busted, and Disgusted comment I made earlier, when we did that documentary and we were in negotiations to partner with this firm to end up, we ultimately sold it to CNBC for a year. And the contract language was such that there were things in there that I know I didn't foresee happening. as in they basically said, you can't release this online during this period of time. There's no way that you can do this in a like a free format. It wouldn't go to YouTube. They would have legally blocked us from doing that. And so in going through that contract, I learned on the next 2 or 3 what to look for, what to write in, what protection we had. And I think that is maybe part of the lesson for Taylor Swift and every artist that's come after her, is paying attention to the artists that have come before you and where did they get suckered? Like,
yeah. So
right?
our earlier story, right? The Creedence story and whatever it might be.
Yeah.
In just a second, Adam and I are going to have our big takeaway from today's piece about Taylor Swift and her masters being sold. First, want to say a big thanks to everybody though who's used our link when they've gone to Tiller Money. It's tillerhq.com/MWF. Here's why I like using this. While I am a money geek, I'm not a spreadsheet geek, guys, but I use spreadsheets because every time that I've used an app to try to track my money, there's always a piece of it that I don't like. And if the app is free, I also find there's some clever ways for them to make sure they make a little money by showing me ads all the time. I'm there to do my budget, not to be marketed. What's cool about Tiller is that it comes with a bunch of templates that bigger money geeks than me made. And if I don't like the template because it's a spreadsheet, I can change it. For me, I dumb it down. I know for a lot of you money geeks, you like more charts and graphs, and you can make it even bigger and better and see every way your money comes in, the way your money comes out. Dice it however you want, because it's the power of either Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel, whichever one that you like. And now that Microsoft Excel is bringing back a version of Microsoft Money that I know money geeks in the 90s really like, the older money geeks out there like me, I remember how much people loved that before Microsoft got rid of it. That plays nicely with Tiller as well. Check it out at tillerhq.com/MWF. You'll get a free 30-day trial, and hopefully you'll see why I like it so much. Good time, by the way, Adam, to start tracking your money now during the holidays, because this is, I don't know about you, but this is the time for people listening to the audio. I'm taking my hand in that just bills coming off thing. I feel like I'm super spreader with my cash this time of year every year.
Yeah, the holes in the bottom of the boat get bigger and bigger in December.
Right. Sure. At the very least, I want to be one guy out at the end of the boat bailing out while my family is putting holes in the other end of the boat. So
Indeed.
It's crazy. What's our takeaway from today's piece, Adam? Do you think about Taylor Swift and her masters being sold?
I think the takeaway is learn from those who have come before you. And one of the things that I'm always struck with is that we are not the first ones to do what we're doing. So if you are looking at a contract or you are a creator and you're signing a representation agreement, find out what has happened in the past where people have gotten stuck and learn from their mistakes and don't make the same ones. I think success leaves clues and failure leaves clues. So if we find these cases where things didn't go as planned, what can we learn from those moving forward in our own journey?
I love that. And you know what? Something we didn't talk about, so it wouldn't have been a takeaway until now, but that I really like about what you said. I think about the power of referrals and knowing people who know. You might not know the right people to be in your corner to help out, but you know the people who know the people. And there's a great book that a lot of us have read called The Millionaire Next Door, Dr. Thomas Stanley. He very famously wrote that book. A lot of people have heard that. What a lot of people don't know is he wrote a couple books that are companions of this. And you might have read these books, Adam. There's Networking with the Affluent and Marketing to the Affluent, which he also wrote for people that want to work with millionaires and multimillionaires. And what he said is these people that have a lot of money and are very successful, always work through referrals, because the way to not get in a mess is not just to look at history, but to look at history around you. And I think that's by asking your friend. And if I ask Adam, Adam will go, "Oh, don't do that because I did that." And you definitely don't want to walk down that path. That's how the wealthiest people work, is through referrals. And you probably should too.
I love that.
Well, thank you, man. Hey, I heard a rumor that you've got this awesome podcast.
I do have an awesome podcast. It's called the Build a Bigger Life podcast. We are on episode nearly 160. I think I recorded 159 yesterday. And I'm very excited about it because it essentially we interview people who are building a bigger life, not a bigger lifestyle. Those who are doing more of what they love to do, less of what they have to do. And we get to share the 9 core tenets that it requires to build a bigger life. So each week we interview someone and I give some tidbits on how to build a bigger life yourself. And all that leads to the retreat, as you talked about earlier.
Well, and I like 2 things that you've talked about recently. Number one is it's a tough time for mental health right now for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And just seeing the resurgence of COVID, there's a lot of people out there who are, they're already not around people, which isn't healthy. They're going to be around fewer people and for a longer period of time. So you talking about mental health a couple episodes ago, I thought was incredible. And then the fact that we all need to be together, and we just got through an incredibly divided time. You had a solo episode talking about divided we fall. And man, do we feel a little slightly divided right now. I'm kind of pissed at my cousin right now because of the election stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't want to hate my cousin. I want to like my cousin.
But there's a lot of people out there who are probably not liking their cousins right now, or their uncles or grandpa or whoever, right?
Yeah.
That solo cast was really important for me, Joe, because I talk about the fact that media really has divided us. And I don't mean to lump all media like, oh, media is bad, all media is bad, because I think the fourth estate, isn't it? The fourth estate is important, right? I think media is important. But I also we need to look at where was the money flowing. And if the money was flowing to those that created divide, then maybe we need to question that a little bit. And so as we move into November, December, January, and it looks like COVID will probably still be here, one of the things that I think we need to focus on is our own adaptability. And when we talk about evolution, Darwin didn't say the strongest survive. He said the most adaptable survive. And so we all have to figure out, how do we adapt to this scenario? And, we'll do it. We're an adapted species.
Well, I think I have to adapt to the fact that my cousin Gail's an idiot. So no, but what is funny to your point about the election is, because I thought about that, Adam, is we are now at a place where we look at an election like it's a sports contest, right? I mean, we've got this where we're supporting one side, like we're supporting a football team, or we're supporting this side. And I don't know, I personally think we should be supporting ideas, not people. And the second that we say I'm X person supporter, that's when we start going down the wrong rabbit hole. So
yeah, the counselor that I interviewed on the show when we were talking about mental health, she kind of put it into perspective for me. She said, one person, you personally probably have 35 different platforms, theories, ideas, things you hold dear. If I am violently opposed to one of them, it doesn't make you a bad person. Necessarily. I don't know. Does it, Joe? You have a look on your face like I should question that logic.
No, I'm thinking it still makes my cousin Gail a bad person.
Yeah,
but I get where you're going.
Did Gail listen to the show?
I hope not. Actually, I don't really care because we kind of had it out. But that's and I don't do that very much. But it was But to your point, yes, Gail has a lot of great qualities, and I should recognize that.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. We also talk on the show about how our stories around money were created when we were very young, as I believe were our stories around politics and everything else. I mean, I grew up in a household that, or not my household, my grandpa was a very socialist leaning guy. I mean, he ran for the governor of the state of Iowa, and his campaign platform was he wanted to legalize marijuana, prostitution, and gambling.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey.
He was super progressive.
Holy cow. In what year?
1973.
Wow.
And he was going to tax all of those and then use it to support social programs.
There it is. See, that sounds more libertarian to me, It was
very libertarian before libertarian, right? But
yeah. It's the Build a Bigger Life podcast. Always something original and fun, and something I don't expect, but something that I think that we all need. AC giving us what we need. Not
Thank you, my friend.
Tomorrow, we're going to talk about what you need. You may need your own private jet, don't you? We'll talk about why.
I can't wait to have this conversation.
We'll talk about why on tomorrow's show. We'll see you then. Bye-bye. Oh my God, was that fun?
That was fun.
Everybody's quiet this morning. There, we've got Kevin here with us. Kevin, You missed Taylor Swift, big guy. I know. Support ideas. What a novel concept. It's that way too much money being a Trump supporter, Biden supporter. You know, you got to be a supporter of a person. No, thanks.
You know what it is too, Joe? I realized that when you define the enemy, it makes it much easier to raise money.
It does.
The number of mailers and things I got that was just about defining the enemy. It's like, well, but I don't know. My neighbor's my enemy. He's got a different sign than I do in my yard, but.
Well, and I'll tell you, Adam, as you know, it totally works. I mean, it totally works. So I was in a mastermind group with a guy who was a friend, more of an acquaintance, and I really disagreed with what he did, even though I was also as certain as he was that it was going to work. But he went along with it. He created a group. I won't mention the group, but he created this group. And he said, when he was creating it, he said, the way to do this is us versus them. And he's going to make fun of the them. There is that, hey, we all believe this. These idiots over there believe this other thing. They are morons and they can't see the light. And I'm like, I just can't play that game. Like, I understand that our animalistic thing, that's going to totally, and it did. He now has in maybe a year and a half or 2 years, he went from 0 Facebook people in his group to his Facebook group has like 95,000 people in 18 months. And he's constantly, and I can see it, he's constantly throwing them red meat. Guess what these idiots did now? You and I don't believe that. You and I believe this other thing. Those people are morons. And it totally works.
Wow.
It totally works.
There was a speaker that I saw some time ago. It was maybe 18 months ago. And he was saying that every 30 years we go through this seismic shift. And it's like the pendulum swings from having a really strong leadership character to then it swings to an us versus them mentality.
Yeah.
And he said he goes, I hate to be a doom and gloomer here, but for the next 10 years, it will be us versus them.
Yeah.
And he said that's how it will shift. And then at some point, there will be one leader that rises up, almost like, I mean, to use historical examples, a JFK, an MLK, somebody that comes in and says, I'm the uniter. This is what's going to happen. We're going to fight. And everyone will be like, there he is, or she is. This is there's an event, I might think. I mean, I don't know this line of thinking, but I also think we rally around events that 9/11. I never felt like we were the whole country on the same page after 9/11. I felt the love and I felt community, and I didn't care who your presidential choice was. I wanted to give you a hug, Yeah. That's good stuff. Karen Schwab, do you know Karen? I don't know Karen.
Karen's is one of my favorite people, if not my favorite person. Karen. Okay. You're my favorite person, Karen. Karen and Tom Schwab have Interview Valet.
Okay. So I know Tom, but I've not met Karen.
Yes. Karen is easily Tom's better half.
It's lovely to meet you, Karen.
It is not even close. Like, if you didn't like Tom, I totally get it, Adam. I totally get it. But you can't not like Karen.
I like Karen just based on the image she had there, the picture. I don't know if that was Karen.
I think can we go ahead and refer to Gail as Karen? No offense to Karen. And then Karen said, that's a good one. Yeah. All right. We're going to dial up the next one and we're going to get going on this. How about this headline, guys? New deal at Costco. All right. Let me click through these. We're going to do NordPass. NordPass has a very special deal, everybody. Pretty exciting. Okay. Ready to do this, Mr. Carroll?
I am.
Here we go. So what will you learn today? Well, I think I did that one yesterday. Let's not do that, guys. Take 2. This is what I love about doing these live on video. Yeah, we're not going to do that one. How about this? 3, 2, 1. What's on tap today? How about a Costco deal maybe even you can't pass up? We'll actually talk about a deal you might just have to pass on. And what does that have to do with you and your money? We got our morning dose of vitamin AC back again. Adam Carroll joining us on today's Money with Friends. Welcome back to the Money with Friends podcast, coming to you live from my mom's half-finished basement where we make episodes of the Stacky Benjamin Show. I'm Joe Saul-Sehy.
My name is Adam Carroll. I'm here where I drink chai tea while doing Tai Chi. It's an amazing place to be on this Wednesday morning.
You are ambidextrous, my friend, or a multitasker extraordinaire.
Always.
This is the podcast.
Sweater under the table.
This is the podcast where we cover recent stories ripped from the financial press while Adam's doing all that. Today, we're going to tackle one. Where's this one from? It is from USA Today. And not only do we read them like some podcasts, we're going to dive into how this affects your wallet, what you can do to save a little better, spend a little smarter, maybe a lot smarter on today's episode. And we hopefully are going to do that in less than 20 minutes. Today's show brought to you by NordPass. I got an email from my friend Sandy over at NordPass telling me they have a special cyber deal that's going to go through December 1st. And is it through or to December 1st? Well, we're earlier than that. So get in on this. You will get an additional month for free and a 70% discount to keep your password safe. NordPass.com/MWF. I'll tell you all about NordPass a little later in the show. But if there's a time, Mr. Carroll, that we are out shopping, and this year cyber shopping more than ever, like keeping your password safe and your bank account safe, probably want to think about that a little bit.
I think now's the most important time to go out and get a password protection program. Like even as you said, NordPass, I'm like, oh, I think I need NordPass. I think off a free month.
70% off. And it reminds me, by the way, and this is not what NordPass is doing, but it reminds me, you ever play the game Payday when you were a kid?
I remember Payday, yeah.
So sure. I liked it because there was a stack of mail. And one of my favorite things to do as a little kid was go with my mom down to the mailbox and get the mail and see what was in the mail. Like that was cool. And in Payday, for people who've never played this board game, there's mail and you get these letters, you get bills, you get insurance offers, and you get deals. You take advantage of all these things. But one of my favorites was from the Mr. McGregor Fence Company. And it was a piece of junk mail. And it said, Mr. Carroll, when we promised you 70% off our fences, we weren't referring to the price, we were referring to the height. So it's just... And as a kid, by the way, that went over my head. And a couple of years ago, I was leafing through old board games and I'm like, oh, Payday. And I'm going through those. And I'm like, how did that go just completely over my head?
Oh my gosh. And what great copywriting back in the day for somebody to do that.
You know, some board game person in the back room cracking themselves up with this stuff.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, today we're going to crack ourselves up with an offer that Costco's making. And, this is a good one. You might want to get out your credit card, guys. Don't want to pass this up. We'll see what we're talking about here as soon as we get some help kicking off the show. All right. Today's piece, as I mentioned, comes from USA Today. It's written by Nathan Bomey. This one, Adam found Costco selling, wait for it, $17,500 subscription to Wheels Up private jet service. And I love the way that Nathan starts off this piece. He says, let's just say there won't be any free samples with this Costco product. Costco's selling memberships to a private jet service wholesale club, offering a 12-month membership, private aviation service, Wheels Up for $17,499.99. Because if you're going to spend $17,000, I don't want to spend $17,500, but I will spend $17,499.99.
How long do you think they deliberated on that in the marketing room?
Should it be 98?
Should we do 17.5 guys? 497, 499, 499.99.
That'll get them. That'll bring them in for this. What attracted you to this piece, Adam?
I'll tell you what exactly what connected me to it, Joe, is my wife will often say that, and by the way, I am the one who goes to Costco in our family. My wife just does not like going to Costco at all. I love it. I love Costco.
Because you love buying a pallet of toilet paper.
I do. There is something about walking through and being like, I will never have to shop for toilet paper again as soon as I get this in my minivan. My wife jokes that I'm the only person who can go to Costco with a shopping list and walk out with a kayak. Okay. And it's happened. I'm not going to say it's not happened. Like, why did you buy this? it was a good deal. And I thought, hey, we'll go kayaking this week. My thought was, though, would I ever go into Costco with a shopping list and walk out with a $17,000 private jet membership?
Have you seen that GMC commercial of the his and her trucks?
Yeah.
And that drives me crazy. I'm like, Cheryl, if I ever brought her home a truck and didn't tell her and probably had payments on that truck,
right?
Like somebody would not be happy. And the other one would probably be living in a tent out back.
I'm with you. I love that commercial and joke about it all the time. I saw a great tweet about it. It said, "Hey, honey, I went shopping for each of us." And she puts the watches down. And he's like, "Oh, cool. That's $1,000. And he's like, "I went shopping too." And they walk out, here's $160,000 worth of vehicles.
What could possibly go wrong?
Ridiculous.
Yeah. If I brought home a private jet membership, I'm not sure what Cheryl would do. But you know what's funny? As you talk about this, I remember, I'm going to quote the man from Tennessee, Dave from Tennessee. Dave was talking about people that own Lamborghinis, though, Adam, and the fact that, and you and I have been in these Facebook groups or people poop. Well, I don't need a Lamborghini. I don't need well, you know what? Your Bondo mobile that costs $1,500 to somebody who's raking in $1 million a year, a Lamborghini's the Bondo mobile for them. Like they can afford it. And he's like, just don't compare yourself. Comparing yourself to other people, I think, is where we get into trouble.
So true. So true. So you asked the question, what drew me to this?
Yes.
When I looked at the number, honestly, I thought 17.5, I would consider that depending on what the deal was.
Because you travel a fair amount.
I travel a fair amount. Depending on the cost of the flights, I think that's part of it. And when you look at Costco memberships as a whole, as I understand Costco's business model, they make the majority of their money on membership, not on the products that they actually sell. And yet most of the members, I have to imagine, or a vast majority of them, are probably business owners.
Yeah.
So if a business owner is traveling or needs to travel and they need to do airline travel to go visit clients, but aren't really comfortable with commercial travel, would they legitimately spend $17.5 to be able to travel privately? I think they might.
Well,
Yeah.
But there's also another facet to that, Adam, I think, which is not just uncomfortable. It also is, for a lot of people in those businesses, time is money. And you can quantify the amount of money that you're losing by going through security, doing connecting flights, all this stuff versus just getting there. Right. And I remember in my career, when I was a financial planner, I had the ability at one point to work with a bunch of executives from Herman Miller, the people that make the nice chairs and stuff, across the state. And ultimately, I decided not to do it, but it was close. If I could line up these meetings across the state back to back to back and hire a plane to get me there instead of taking general aviation, I could get there quick enough and come home soon enough that air travel paid for itself. A friend of mine that owns a jet is kind of in that position and said, it is a really expensive time travel device. Mm-hmm. It's not an airplane. It is a time travel device. And, to those people, cost benefit, I think, is a huge, huge piece of getting ahead. Agreed.
I had this conversation with a friend of mine who, he's a client. He happens to be very successful in his business. I think, it's his paychecks are in the illions. So anytime they're in the illions, it's a big deal. And I said, "Did you happen to see this?" And he said, "Yeah, I wouldn't do it." And I asked him, "Why not?" And he said, "Well, on the off occasion that I take people from my company somewhere, if we went to Chicago, or he goes to Florida quite often for vacation, he has a house down there. But he said, I can fly commercially, and I can know that that I can buy the nicest ticket, the nicest seat on these flights that are direct flight to where he wants to go for his entire family and spend about $6,000.
Oh.
And he said, for me, it's easier doing that than it is going and doing a 17.5, private plane membership. Although he did say he really loves flying with his friends who have jets.
Yes. So. Yeah. I got to tell you, a friend of mine doesn't have a jet, but has an airplane. And we went to pick up our kids so we were in Texarkana. His son is in Waco at Baylor. My son was at the University of Texas in Austin. They're fairly close. So he said, "Hey, why don't we pick up our kids?" In fact, I think it was a Thanksgiving weekend, Adam. So we went to pick them up. It takes 6 hours to drive from here to Austin, just to give you an idea.
Right.
We flew to Waco. We took our time in Waco getting his son. We put him in the plane. We then do the puddle jumper down to Austin.
Yep.
We get that they have a car that you can borrow for a couple hours.
Right.
You don't pay for it, you just borrow it, right? So this comes with the territory.
Yep.
We went down to a cool, Austin is just full of awesome restaurants. We pick up my son, Nick. We go to this awesome restaurant. We have a very casual dinner. We come back, we get in the plane. We then fly back to Texarkana. All told, 7 hours.
Oh my gosh.
There and back, and a nice dinner, relaxing. It's a time travel device.
Yeah.
And based on the amount that Todd told me he paid for it, it was a complete waste of money. Like we were burdened cash.
I was waiting for that big, and it was totally worth it,
No, I still wouldn't do it to your point. I just, for me, I'm at that point where the time money doesn't make a lot of sense, but I could see if I had enough money that yes, absolutely. John, by the way, has a question for you, Adam. We do the show live, by the way, if you're listening on YouTube. If you want to hang out with us while I make the shows, head to youtube.com/money with friends. John says, Adam, are you a patient person? He's wondering how the heck Adam doesn't mind the crowds and those checkout lines even during non-COVID times. I'm with John. I'm like, oh, please get out of my way. Please, please, please. Just get out of my way.
So John, this is a great question. I appreciate you asking it. I do consider myself a patient person, but more importantly than that, I'm an observer of human behavior. And so I love going to Costco and just seeing how people are. So I go almost like that's my lab, and I'm running experiments when I'm in there. And that's why I love Costco.
And you come out feeling a little sadder every time.
Well, there's so I have to at least put this out there. Our Costco has this water salesperson, and I believe that this gentleman has found his calling because he has this pitch. And as you're walking out, and I always engage with him, he's like, water, get your cold, fresh water. And then he has little idioms like makes great coffee. And so I love going in because there are more stories I can tell from my Costco experience.
Makes great coffee. I can see him before he goes to work. Marge, I got the line.
I got it.
This is, most people don't know that this makes great coffee. There's a key ingredient to coffee. There is, Kevin's hanging out with us. He runs a coffee company. So he's like, oh, beans and coffee I get that.
And water. You need to sell this water. Yeah, I have to imagine this guy was either going to be a water salesman or a carnival barker. And that's it. Those were the two things he was qualified.
John says, I got to admit, I'm stressed out just listening to your explanation.
You should go with me, John. We'd have a ton of fun together.
That's pretty great. Hey, in just a second, Adam and I are going to have our takeaway from today's discussion about private jets. But before we get there, I want to finish up this discussion about my friend Sandy at NordPass telling me that it's 70% off until December 1st. Head to nordpass.com/MWF. So why do you want a password manager? Here's where I like it. If you have other people that you share passwords with all the time, it's a very easy one spot to put all of your different passwords. Cheryl used to get angry at me all the time because, they would come on at my bank and say, hey, it's been 3 months. You got to change your password. You come to this, whatever place, you got to change your password, or I'd forget what it was and I'd have to go change the password. So this one is the new password. This one is the password we used 6 months ago. That one's still the password we used 2 years ago. And invariably we'd lock each other out. And of course, our discussions never went that way. It was usually Cheryl saying, Joe, why'd you go mess with all the passwords? And I didn't go mess with all the passwords. The companies mess with the passwords, or my brain couldn't remember the passwords. Here's what we did. We got NordPass. We share one master password. All the passwords are different. They're not that reliable old password that some hacker gets one, they get them all. Every single password is different. I have no clue what the passwords are. Neither does Cheryl, but we both know where to find them. And those arguments went bye-bye, and we're a ton safer because we use NordPass. So if you want to try out NordPass, you will not only get a free trial, but you're also getting 70% off until December 1st. Head to nordpass.com/MWF to try it out. I think you'll initially, by the way, Adam, I don't know if you use a password manager. I hated it at first. I'm like, oh, I got to log into my NordPass instead of just put the password in. And now I love it. Just love it. And I also think, frankly, if something ever happened to me, and as you become a certain age, Adam, you'll start feeling these feelings too. As I think if I pass away, Cheryl knows where everything is, right?
The doubts of your longevity are starting to creep in. Is that what you're saying?
Just, someday I may go. I'm starting to believe I'm mortal.
I'm going to give you 2 reasons why I'm literally, after we're done going on to NordPass and doing this. Number one is I was the subject of Bitcoin blackmail. So I got one of those emails that said, hey, we see you, we inserted something on your laptop and you've been doing illicit things. And the reason I even opened it and it kind of hooked me was in the subject.
Because you have been doing illicit things?
So I wondered, well, did they? And what have I been doing? But they had my password in the subject line, one of the passwords that I'd used in the past.
Wow.
And so this is how these companies are hooking people into these blackmail email chains. They'll buy a list of ganked passwords and then send emails to those people with the password in the subject line.
Wow.
And say, we have you and we're going to send it out to your entire list unless you send us $5,000 in Bitcoin or what have you. That's number one. Number two, we tend to use a lot of Google, Google Chrome, and Chrome will save your passwords. Yeah. But every now and again, it'll pop up and say, these passwords have been compromised. I looked at it the other day. It was my wife's sites, my daughter's sites, and some of them were even .edu, colleges my daughter has applied to, that have been compromised.
NordPass does the same thing. When I log in, it'll say, hey, these passwords have been compromised. And so go change them right now. It's pretty cool stuff. Speaking of cool stuff, having a private plane is pretty cool. What's our takeaway from Costco selling private plane memberships, Mr. Carroll?
Yeah, well, so 2 takeaways for me. One is that $17.5, when you dig into it, you also get a 1-year membership to Inspirato, which is like a high-end vacation thing. $3,500 Costco shop card. So that takes it down to $14,000. $4,000 flight credit. So now it's only $10,000. And nationwide aircraft availability, 365 days a year.
You get a commission selling this crap, don't you?
I should, yes. See affiliate disclaimer below. The thing that I learned in going through this exercise was I think people can legitimize whatever expenditure they make. And even in the midst of this, I thought, well, realistically, it's $10,000. Is $10,000 worth it for me to go do this? And how many speaking gigs would I need to do at X amount in order to cover it and save the time and money and make it work? So I'm looking at it. I'm probably not going to do it. And here's why, Joe. There are no reviews as of yet on the website.
Oh,
so I'm a review guy, Sorry, Costco.
But that makes sense. I mean, we talked about, we were recording a Stacking Benjamins episode earlier, and OG and I were talking about people getting ripped off by an advisor and putting money into a fund that doesn't have a name. It's with the advisor. And, if your advisor says, put it in this thing with Fidelity, I know Fidelity. I know that it's a third party. I know. But if your advisor is selling promissory notes to themselves and promising you a 20% rate of return, I mean, that's kind of like the reviews, right? When I go to a restaurant or a hotel, I always check the reviews and I go immediately to the negative ones. And my soul dies a little bit reading those reviews. By the way, people could give a 1-star review for any reason. We were in Bavaria. We were going to this tapas place, and I went immediately to the 1-star reviews, and somebody said, I've been to a lot of tapas restaurants. We had, the missus and I had the opportunity to go to XYZ restaurant that supposedly is tapas restaurants. I've been to a lot of tapas restaurants. This was no tapas restaurant. These were small plates.
And they gave a 1-star.
1 star, not tapas, small plates. Oh, I'm glad you defined that.
Yeah. Can I tell you one thing? That guy would never buy a $17,500 jet membership because he's thinking, I'm totally going to roast these people. 15 minutes crafting the perfect burn, 1-star burn.
1 star. It's too small a Lear. I like my Lear jets with 6 seats, not 4.
That's right.
Yeah,
If you're
horrible.
going to be a tapas restaurant, don't just give me small plates.
Yes.
I thought tapas was small plates.
I thought it was too. I'm like, that's just somebody needs to be angry. Like I just need to be angry.
Right.
But my takeaway actually, Adam, is from a little different angle. So I like the fact that we've got two kind of different things. My takeaway is actually this idea that cheaper isn't always better. I mean, there's a lot of people that this makes sense for. And I know what a lot of people listening to this at first are thinking, well, that's too much money. And that's, whoa, I'd never do that. I'm going to fly basic economy on Spirit Airlines. And my whole trip's going to suck.
I'm wearing the clothes, right? No bags.
I'm wearing 18 things of clothes. No, cheaper is not always better. And I feel like a lot of, especially our money geeks, often get trapped into that if it costs something, I'm not going to pay for it, which is not, it might be okay for you, but that's not the way that everybody wants to live their life. Sometimes people want to your point, sometimes somebody wants the jet. And even if they can't justify it, the fact that they really want it, and hopefully, assuming they can afford it, go do it, man. Go have your private jet.
Yeah. What your comment, I love your comment, by the way. A good friend of mine says money is one of the most abundant things in the world. Really, there's $4 trillion circulating the globe on a daily basis. And all we got to do is dip into that stream. It's a little bit and could be massively abundant. And so I think some of it too is mindset and mentality. You don't, and I don't mean to slam Sam's Club, but I don't think Sam's Club is going to offer a $17,500 jet membership. I just don't think they have it.
You don't think Walmart's going there?
I just don't. While I think the owners travel that way, I just don't think they're selling it. And so mindset is really important because, as you mentioned, free is not always the best. And if there's something you want, by all means, splurge. Back to the original comment about holes in your boat in December.
Right. Absolutely. Hey, you not only have a fantastic podcast, Build a Bigger Life podcast, but you also do some retreats. Are we ever going to be doing retreats again? Oh. Is that ever going to be a thing, do you think?
It is. We are actually planning the retreat for 2021. It will either come in the summer or the early fall. And to give people a fix, Joe, prior to that, if you listen to the Build a Bigger Life podcast, you'll know we talk about retreats and we talk about connectivity and community. And so one of the things that's occurred to me in the midst of COVID and quarantine and some of the conversations I'm having is that we are going to do a Build a Bigger Life online, kind of a virtual coaching program. And the reason we're doing that is there's so many people, I think, that are wanting 2021 to be vastly different than 2020 was. And part of the thing that I think they need is community to help them do that. And so if you check out buildabiggerlife.com and you get on our list for the coaching program in 2021, we'll launch it in January. It'll likely be somewhere between 12 weeks and 6 months, depending on the interest. But we're going to have 30, 40 people in there that are all about making 2021 the best year ever.
Yeah. And that surrounding yourself with the right people, like we talked about yesterday, Adam, I think is a big key to the game.
It's huge. It's huge. And the people that we generally attract are like-minded. So they're folks that are not going to let their circumstances get them bogged down. And they help, propel everyone else to the goals that they've set for themselves. So it's a great group.
I gave it 1 star because I don't like retreats in beautiful places.
I don't like big lives.
I'm trying to lose weight. I don't want a bigger life. 1 star.
I don't like hammers. Building scares me. 1 star.
Adam's going to be back with us next month. Thanks again for doing this, my friend. But you'll have Bobby and I back here tomorrow with the weekend episode. What's coming up and weekend review. We'll have that for you tomorrow. We'll see you next time back here, guys, at Money with Friends. Bye-bye. Bam. We did it.
That was awesome.
Nice job. That was fun. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. This is tell Paula Pant about the Costco. She's quite tell her that it includes index funds or something. Yeah.
Wouldn't you like it? Because afford anything, like she'd get an extra $3,500 to shop at Costco.
Well, you take that up. So we had this happen, and I know we all got to go, but I had this happen. I went to a Landry's restaurant the other day for our anniversary, and it's funny. It was supposed to be for our anniversary, but my son was with us because he happens to be spending the 2 months. So nothing more romantic than Cheryl, me, and my kid out for my anniversary dinner. But we did have a good time. And frankly, he wouldn't be alive if we weren't having an anniversary.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. So, but they offered us this thing. Landry Restaurants has this thing. You know, they own a ton of brands. Like they're all so many. I never realized how big that brand is. But so you pay $25 for the membership. But the second that you go online and create your account, you get a $25 gift certificate for the next time that you go. And then you just start building, points or whatever the hell when you go to Landry stuff, and they give you like stuff on your birthday, and they give you all this. Well, and you don't even have to go there on your birthday. Sounds like I'm selling this. You don't have to go there on your birthday. So I don't know. I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, I don't want to spend another $25, but how do I lose on this deal? The only way I lose on this deal is if I never go out to eat, or if I choose I don't want to go out to Landry restaurant. I don't know.
And if the food stock would be different, right? But Landry's actually has pretty good food. So you're going to go back again.
Yeah, we were at, and I don't usually go to these high-end steakhouses, but we were at Del Frisco's Steakhouse in Plano. And holy crap, Adam. 2 things. Number 1, it was really good. Number 2 is I think I could have bought a vehicle.
I was saying, why did you take your son to Del Frisco's? You and Carroll are like gazing lovingly at each other and ordering, top sirloins. And you're like, you can have a salad.
That's right. I heard that asparagus appetizer or side dish.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you guys next. Actually, I'll be here with Bola Succumbi in an hour. So we'll see you guys in a little bit. Bye-bye.